I walked into my house and heard a laugh from my bedroom. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there and listened. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I remember the exact moment my voice died. It wasn't loud. There was no dramatic crash, no cinematic scream echoing through the walls. Just the quiet click of a door that wasn't supposed to be locked. The house smelled different that night. Usually, it carried the soft warmth of vanilla candles and freshly brewed tea, my doing. But as I stepped inside, something sharper cut through the air. A mix of unfamiliar perfume and sweat. Sweet but wrong. Like a lie dressed in silk. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, keys still in my hand, my heart doing something strange, like it already knew. "Hello!" I called out. No answer. But the house wasn't empty. You can feel it when someone is there. The air shifts. The silence becomes aware. My heels clicked softly against the marble floor as I walked further inside. Each step felt heavier, like the ground itself was trying to warn me not to continue. Then I heard it. A laugh. Low. Intimate. Not meant for strangers. My stomach dropped. It came from upstairs. From our bedroom. No. His bedroom, apparently. I should have screamed. I should have stormed up there, thrown the door open, created chaos. That's what movies teach you, right? Rage. Tears. Confrontation. But real betrayal, it freezes you first. I walked upstairs slowly, my fingers brushing against the cold railing. Every step felt like stepping deeper into a version of my life I didn't recognize. The door was slightly open. Just enough. And through that narrow gap, I saw everything. Him. And her. Wrapped in sheets I had bought. In a room I had decorated. In a life I had built. For a second, the world didn't shatter. It paused. Like even reality needed a moment to process the audacity. My chest tightened, but not in the way I expected. No tears came. No scream escaped. Just silence. Cold. Calculated silence. And that's when something shifted inside me. Not heartbreak. Something sharper. I stepped back quietly, careful not to let the floor creak. My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. My breathing steadied. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. Not tonight. I turned and walked back downstairs, each step now deliberate. Controlled. Like I was already becoming someone else. Someone they didn't know. The kitchen lights flickered slightly as I entered, casting shadows across the polished countertops. Everything looked the same. But nothing felt the same. I placed my keys down gently. Then I reached for my phone. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. Instead, I opened the camera app. Then the voice recorder. Then, I paused. No. Too messy. Too emotional. I wasn't going to react. I was going to plan. I leaned against the counter, closing my eyes for a moment. Memories started flooding in. His smile, the way he used to hold my hand, the promises whispered in the dark. Lies. All of it. But beneath the betrayal, something else emerged. Clarity. I opened my eyes. And that's when I noticed it. His laptop, sitting on the dining table. Unlocked. Careless. I almost laughed. You see, betrayal makes people sloppy. They think they've already won. I walked over slowly, my fingers gliding over the edge of the table before pulling the chair out. The screen lit up as I touched the mouse. Emails. Bank statements. Messages. A whole life, hidden in plain sight. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't just cheating. No. This was deeper. Messier. Dangerous. There were transfers I didn't recognize. Large ones. Frequent. Names I had never heard before. And then, her name. Repeated. Over and over again. Not just in messages. In transactions. My lips curved slightly. Not a smile. Something colder. Interesting, I whispered. Upstairs, I heard movement. A faint creak. A muffled laugh. They still had no idea. Good. I leaned closer to the screen, scrolling carefully, absorbing everything. Dates. Amounts. Attachments. Evidence. Piece by piece, a puzzle was forming. And at the center of it was him. The man I thought I knew. The man who had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time felt irrelevant. Because in that moment, I wasn't a wife. I wasn't a victim. I was observing. Learning. Planning. Every message I read added fuel. Not to anger, but to something far more dangerous. Patience. Because revenge, I realized, isn't about destruction. It's about precision. And I was going to be very, very precise. I closed the laptop quietly, exactly the way I found it. No traces. No signs. I picked up my keys again and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, I paused. I looked back at the house, at the life I had built, at the illusion that had just shattered, and for the first time that night, I smiled, not because I was okay, but because I knew something they didn't. They thought they had gotten away with it. They thought I was clueless, weak, breakable, but they were wrong, so very wrong, because I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I planned, and by the time I was done, they would wish I had screamed instead. Walked into that house earlier that evening. She didn't exist anymore. And the one sitting here now, she was thinking, calculating, rebuilding. I reached for my phone and opened my notes app. For a moment, the screen stayed blank. Then I typed 2 words. Everything changes. I stared at them for a few seconds, then started listing. His bank activity unknown, transactions her name linked to money, late nights at work, passwords he thought I didn't know. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a system, a pattern, a game. And I was finally seeing the rules. The night air grew colder as I stepped out of the car. I needed somewhere quiet, somewhere neutral, not home. So I drove, no destination in mind, just movement. I ended up at a small 24-hour cafe tucked between 2 empty buildings. The kind of place people don't notice. Soft yellow lights, worn wooden tables, the smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. Perfect. Inside, only one other person sat in the corner, headphones on, lost in their own world. I ordered black coffee. No sugar, no softness. Sitting by the window, I replayed everything in my mind. Not emotionally, strategically. Every moment, every lie, every inconsistency I had ignored before. And suddenly it all made sense. The business trips, the sudden financial stress that didn't add up, the unexplained tension in his voice whenever I asked simple questions. He wasn't just hiding an affair. He was building something behind my back. Something that involved money. A lot of money. And that woman, she wasn't just a mistake. She was part of the plan. I pulled out my phone again and opened his contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. For a second, a very human instinct surfaced. Call him. Confront him. Demand answers. But I stopped. Because that version of me was exactly what he expected. Emotional. Reactive. Predictable. No. If I called now, I'd lose. And I wasn't going to lose. Not anymore. Instead, I opened his messages. Scrolled through old conversations. And there it was. A thread I had overlooked before. A number saved under a fake name. Short texts. Careful wording. Too careful. I leaned closer, narrowing my eyes as I read. Tomorrow. Same account. Don't mess this up. She still doesn't know. My lips pressed into a thin line. She. That was me. I let out a slow breath. Good. Let him think that. The waitress placed my coffee in front of me, breaking my focus for a moment. Long night? She asked casually. I looked up at her. For a split second, I considered lying. But instead I said something like that. She nodded, like she understood more than she let on, and walked away. I wrapped my hands around the cup, letting the heat ground me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about control. Taking it back. I needed more information. And I knew exactly where to get it. By the time I got back into my car, I had a plan forming. Not complete, but enough to start. Step 1 wasn't confrontation. Step 1 was invisibility. I had to become someone he didn't notice. Someone he underestimated. Someone safe. Because the truth is, people reveal everything when they think you're harmless. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The bedroom door was now open. The lights were off. And he was downstairs, sitting on the couch, alone, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't seen everything. He looked up as I entered, a slight frown forming. Where were you? He asked. His voice normal. Too normal. I placed my bag down calmly. Out, I said simply. He studied my face, probably searching for cracks. Signs. emotion. But I gave him nothing. No anger. No sadness. No suspicion. Just calm. Everything okay? He asked, standing up slowly. There it was. The test. I tilted my head slightly, meeting his eyes. Yeah, I said softly. Why wouldn't it be? For a brief moment, something flickered in his expression. Uncertainty. Good. Let him feel that. He nodded, forcing a small smile. Just you seemed off earlier. I'm just tired, I replied, walking past him. Every step felt controlled, measured, like I was performing. And in a way, I was. In the bedroom, everything was back in place. Sheets changed, air freshener sprayed, evidence erased. Or so he thought. I ran my fingers lightly across the bed, my mind replaying what I had seen just hours ago. But again, no tears came, because I wasn't thinking about what I lost. I was thinking about what I was about to take. That night, I lay beside him, listening to his breathing. Slow, peaceful, unaware. And in the darkness, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't rush this. I wouldn't let emotions ruin it. I would wait, watch, collect. And then, when everything was perfectly aligned, I would destroy the illusion he was hiding behind. Piece by piece. Because revenge isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg for attention. It waits. It builds. It becomes inevitable. And as I stared at the ceiling, a single thought echoed in my mind. He thought he was playing me, but he had no idea. I had already started playing him. There's something people misunderstand about quiet women. They think silence means weakness. They think calm means compliance. They think patience means ignorance. They're wrong. Silence is observation. Calm is control. And patience is preparation. The next morning, I woke up before him. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I needed to start. The room was still dim, early sunlight barely slipping through the curtains. He lay beside me, breathing deeply, completely unaware that the woman next to him was no longer his wife, but his reckoning. I turned my head slightly, studying his face. How many lies had that face carried? How many nights had he looked at me the same way, knowing exactly what he was hiding? For a brief second, something inside me twisted. Not love, not pain, just realization. I had been living with a stranger. Quietly, I slipped out of bed, every movement careful, precise. I couldn't afford mistakes now. Not when I was this close to understanding everything. The house felt colder in the morning. Or maybe it was just me. I walked straight to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, and leaned against the counter, my eyes scanning the room like I was seeing it for the first time. Because in a way, this wasn't my home anymore. It was a crime scene, and I was about to investigate it properly. Step 1. Access. His laptop wasn't enough. Too risky. Too temporary. I needed something permanent. Something that would keep feeding me information, even when I wasn't there. And for that, I needed his trust. By the time he came downstairs, I was already making breakfast. Like always. Like nothing had changed. Like I was still predictable. "You're up early," he said, his voice still heavy with sleep. I smiled softly without turning around. Couldn't sleep. A lie, but an easy one. He walked closer, wrapping his arms around me from behind. That used to comfort me. Now, it felt like a performance. Still, I didn't pull away. Because this was part of the plan. "You okay?" he asked again. Second time. Interesting. I turned slightly in his arms, looking up at him. "Yeah," I said gently. "Just thinking about stuff." "What stuff?" I shrugged lightly. "Life. Us." There it was. A seed. And just like I expected, it worked. His expression shifted. Not panic, but alertness. "Us," he repeated. I nodded slowly, lowering my gaze just enough to seem vulnerable. "I feel like we've been distant," I said quietly. That wasn't just a statement. It was bait. And he took it. Immediately. No, it's just work," he said quickly. "You know how things have been." Of course I knew. Better than he realized. I stepped back slightly, giving him space, letting him chase the conversation. "I miss how things used to be," I added softly. Half-truth. Those are the most believable. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know. I've just been under pressure. Financial stuff. Business things. I didn't want to worry you. There it was. The lie. Wrapped in concern. Polished. Practiced. I looked at him carefully, as if I was considering his words. Then I nodded. I understand, I said. And just like that, his shoulders relaxed. Trust restored. Control maintained. Perfect. Later that day, after he left for work, I moved quickly. This was the window. The opportunity. I went straight to his study, closed the door, locked it, and took a deep breath. This wasn't just about curiosity anymore. This was about truth. And truth can destroy everything. I turned on his desktop computer this time. Not the laptop. The one he rarely used in front of me. The one he thought I didn't even notice. Password screen. For a second, I paused. Then I smiled slightly. Because people don't realize something important. They think passwords protect secrets. But really, they reveal them. I typed the first one. Wrong. Second. Wrong. Third. Unlocked. I exhaled slowly. Too easy. He hadn't changed it in years. Still using the same pattern. Predictable. The desktop loaded. Clean. Minimal. Nothing suspicious at first glance. But I knew better. Secrets don't sit on the surface. They hide. I opened folders. Documents. Nothing. Then. A hidden directory. My pulse didn't race. It sharpened. Focused. Click. Files. Dozens of them. Names that meant nothing. Until you opened them. Transactions. Contracts. Fake business deals. Shell accounts. Money being moved through layers, like he was trying to bury it. But the deeper I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't just cheating. This was fraud. And then, I saw her name again. Attached to multiple accounts. Payments. Large ones. Regular ones. She wasn't just involved. She was essential. My jaw tightened slightly. Not in anger. In understanding. Suddenly, everything made sense. He wasn't risking our marriage for her. He was risking it for money. And she was his partner. In everything. But then, I found something that changed everything. A document. Locked. Encrypted. That caught my attention. Because hidden things are one thing. But protected things, those matter. It took time. Patience. But eventually, I got in. And when I did, the room felt smaller. Colder. Because staring back at me was my name. Not as his wife. Not as a partner. But as an asset. My breath slowed. My mind racing faster than my heartbeat. Details. Insurance. Property. Accounts. Everything connected to me. Everything. Prepared. For something. And then I saw the final line. The one that made everything click. In case of unexpected removal. Removal. Not separation. Not divorce. Removal. A chill ran down my spine. For the first time since that night, I felt something real. Not fear. But awareness. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was danger. Real danger. I leaned back slowly, staring at the screen. Thinking. Calculating. Reevaluating everything. Because now, the game had changed. This wasn't about exposing him. Or leaving him. This was about survival. And if he was planning something against me, then I had no choice. I had to move faster. Smarter. Harder. Because the truth was now clear. I wasn't just planning revenge anymore. I was planning to stay alive. Fear is a strange thing. It doesn't always make you run. Sometimes it makes you sharper. And that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't panic, even after reading that word. Removal. Instead, I closed the file calmly, shut down the computer, unlocked the study door, and walked out like nothing had changed. Because now I understood something critical. If I reacted, I would lose. So I didn't react. I adapted. The rest of the day, I played my role perfectly. I answered his calls. I laughed at the right moments. I asked about his work. I became everything he expected me to be. Unaware. Safe. Easy. But inside, everything had shifted. Because now, I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was building a counterplan. One that would not only expose him, but protect me. That night, as he sat beside me scrolling through his phone, I watched him carefully. Not like a wife. Like an analyst. Studying patterns. Timing. Behavior. "You've been quiet today," he said casually, not looking up. I smiled faintly. Just tired. Same excuse. Same tone. Consistency builds trust. He nodded, distracted. Good. Let him stay comfortable. Because comfort makes people careless. And I needed him careless. Later, when he fell asleep, I didn't move immediately. I waited, counted his breaths, made sure he was deep under. Only then, I slipped out of bed. The hallway was dark, but I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need to. I knew this house too well. Back in the study, I locked the door again. This time, I came prepared. My laptop, a USB drive, and something he never expected. Knowledge. You see, before all of this, before marriage, before this quiet life, I wasn't always this version of myself. People look at calm women and assume they've always been soft. They don't ask what made them that way. They don't wonder what they used to be. But I remembered. Years ago, before I met him, my life looked very different. I worked in a place where trust didn't exist, where information was currency, where one mistake could cost everything. I learned things there. Skills most people don't notice. Patterns most people ignore. And more importantly, I learned how to survive. I hadn't used those skills in years. Didn't need to. Didn't want to. But now, I didn't have a choice. I plugged the USB into his system. Started transferring files. Everything I had found. Everything he thought was hidden. Backup. Security. Leverage. But that wasn't enough. Evidence protects you. But strategy wins. So I did something he would never expect. I created a mirror. Access points. Hidden tracking. Silent observation. Now every move he made, every transaction, every message, every step, would come to me. Not immediately, not obviously, but consistently. Because the key to control isn't speed. It's invisibility. Hours passed. By the time I finished, the sky outside was beginning to lighten. I sat back, staring at the screen, thinking, calculating. And then, I realized something. I couldn't do this alone. Not because I wasn't capable, but because this situation was bigger than I initially thought. This wasn't just one man. This was a network. Money, people, connections. And if I made one wrong move, I wouldn't just lose. I would disappear. So I needed help. But not just anyone. Someone who understood risk. Someone who wouldn't panic. Someone who could operate in silence. And there was only one person I trusted for that. I hadn't spoken to him in years. Not since I walked away from that part of my life. Not since I chose a quieter path. But now, I was being pulled back in. I picked up my phone, stared at the contact for a few seconds, a name buried deep in my past. Then I pressed call. It rang once, twice. Then, didn't think I'd hear from you again. His voice, calm, familiar, dangerous. I leaned back slightly, closing my eyes for a brief moment. I need your help, I said. No hesitation. No explanation. Silence. Then a quiet exhale. That bad. I looked toward the door, making sure it was still locked. Then I said something I hadn't said to anyone in years. I think someone's planning to remove me. Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. Sharper. Focused. Tell me everything. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't alone. The next few hours were different. Calculated. Precise. I told him everything. The affair. The money. The files. The word removal. He didn't interrupt. Didn't question. Just listened. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Then he said something that made my grip tighten on the phone. You're not dealing with something small. I figured that. I replied quietly. No, he said. You don't understand yet. A chill ran through me. Then explain. Another pause. Then, if what you're saying is accurate, this isn't just fraud. My heart slowed. What is it then? His answer came cold. Clear. Unshaken. It's set up. Set up. I repeated. Yes, he said. And if your name is in those documents the way you described. He stopped. What? I pressed. His next words landed like a quiet explosion. You're not just a victim in this. A pause. You're the fall. Everything inside me went still. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The accounts. The connections. The planning. They weren't just using me. They were building something on me. And when the time came, they would erase themselves and leave me behind. I opened my eyes slowly, staring into the darkness of the room. No fear, no panic, just one clear thought. They thought I was the trap, but they had no idea I had just turned the entire game around. And now, I wasn't the target anymore. I was the trap. There's a moment in every game when silence stops being strategy and becomes execution. I didn't rush. Even after everything I knew, I waited 3 more days. 3 days of normal behavior. 3 days of soft smiles. 3 days of pretending nothing had changed. Because timing is everything. During those 3 days, everything fell into place. With his help, things moved faster, cleaner, smarter. We traced the accounts, followed the transactions, connected the names, and what we found, it was worse than I imagined. Fake companies, layered accounts, illegal transfers, insurance manipulation, and right at the center of it all, me, not as a partner, not as a victim, but as the perfect fall person. If something went wrong, if authorities ever got involved, everything would lead to me, my name, my identity, my life, and they would disappear, clean, untouched. I stared at the evidence laid out in front of me, files, screenshots, records, every piece of truth they thought I would never see. And for the first time, I felt something close to anger, not because he cheated, not because he lied, but because he underestimated me. The plan we built wasn't emotional. It wasn't messy. It was surgical. Step 1. Secure myself. Every document tied to me, copied, backed up, sent to multiple safe points. Step 2. Flip the narrative. If they wanted me to be the fall, then I would decide when and how. Step 3. Expose them. But not all at once. No. Slowly, publicly, irreversibly. The final night came quietly, just like everything else. He was home early, relaxed, comfortable, dangerously unaware. "Dinner?" he asked casually, loosening his tie. I smiled. Already done. The table was set, candles lit, everything perfect. A mirror of the life he thought he controlled. We sat across from each other. For a moment, it almost looked normal. "You've been different," he said, picking up his glass. I tilted my head slightly. "Different how?" He shrugged. "Calmer." I smiled faintly. "That's because I finally understand things." He paused. "Just for a second." "Understand what?" he asked. I picked up my glass, slowly, holding his gaze. "Everything." Silence. That word again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was loaded. His expression didn't change immediately. But I saw it. That flicker. That shift. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. I placed my glass down gently, then reached into my bag and slid a thin folder across the table. He looked at it, then at me. "Open it," I said softly. Slowly he did, and as his eyes scanned the pages, I watched the transformation. Confusion, recognition, panic. It was subtle, but it was there. "That's not what you think," he said quickly. I almost laughed. "Really?" I replied calmly. "Because it looks exactly like what I think." He pushed the folder away slightly, standing up. "You don't understand how this works." "No," I interrupted quietly. "I understand perfectly." I stood up too. Slowly, controlled. "You built everything around me," I continued. "Accounts, insurance, transfers, all leading back to my name." His jaw tightened. "It was never about us," I said. "It was about using me." Silence. Then, "You weren't supposed to find out," he muttered. And just like that, the truth came out. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. I nodded slowly. "I know." Then I stepped closer. "But here's the part you didn't plan for." I reached for my phone, tapped once, and placed it on the table. A recording. His voice. Clear. Undeniable. His eyes widened. "You see," I said softly, "while you were planning my fall, I leaned in slightly. I was building yours." Before he could react, there was a knock at the door. Sharp, precise, final. His head snapped toward it, panic fully visible now. "What did you do?" he whispered. I smiled. Not softly, not kindly, Exactly what you were going to do to me. The door opened, and everything ended. Days later, the house was quiet again. But this time, it was real. No lies, no hidden conversations, no illusions, just truth. He was gone. Not just from the house, from everything. And she didn't disappear like they planned. Because this time, they didn't control the story. I did. I stood by the window, sunlight pouring into the room, warming the space that once felt cold. People think revenge is about destruction, about pain, about chaos. But they're wrong. Real revenge is clarity. It's taking everything they built against you and turning it into the reason they fall. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't break. I watched. I learned. I planned. And in the end, I didn't just survive. I ended it. Because the truth is, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who stays quiet.